This is the Norris Group's Real Estate Investor Radio Show, the award-winning show dedicated to thought leaders shaping the real estate industry and local experts revealing their insider tips to succeed in an ever-changing real estate market. Hosted by author, investor, and hard money lender, Bruce Norris.
Hi, thanks for joining us. My name is Bruce Norris, and today we have a very special guest, Buddy Rushing. Buddy began white feather investing in early 2007 in Twentynine Palms, California. His ultimate goal is to build passive income stream through residential commercial properties that can ensure our financial freedom for our families and help as many fellow military as we can along the way. Since the launch, Buddy was pulled away on multiple month-long training exercises and 4 trips to Afghanistan. Despite those difficulties, WFI has purchased single-family rentals, wholesaled, flipped, invested in trust deeds, executed joint ventures, constructed Roth IRA acquisitions, executed BRRR deals, short-term rentals, purchased an apartment complex, and even launched an RV and solar business. Outside of that, he hasn't done a darn thing. He's also launched the WFI Investor Club, an online real estate investment accelerating training, and that's focused on helping education and empower military members to achieve financial freedom through real estate investing, which has allowed us to open new turnkey rental operations in Memphis, Little Rock, St. Louis, Milan, Columbus, Chicago, California, Florida, and Alabama. We are moving into Mississippi and North Carolina. His most recent endeavors have definitely been a challenge, but our primary goal remains the same: to help our nation's heroes build financial freedom so they can live the American dream they fight to protect. That's as good an introduction as I've ever heard, buddy. So,
well,
welcome.
Thank you. I have to tell you, the fact that I'm here getting a chance to talk to Bruce Norris is feels a bit surreal, because I remember during the very beginning, right before I went to Afghanistan, actually, at the head of Bravo Company, First Combat Engineers, I was stationed in Camp Pendleton. Kimberly and I lived in a 800 square foot apartment on Acacia there in Carlsbad Village, and it was just the two of us. And we had read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and that was it. And we'd made one really bad investment in Twentynine Palms years before. That was my fault. And so that's it. That's all. You know, I had a job. She worked at Jenny Craig, making $600 a month. And I remember going to NSDREI one time, the North San Diego Real Estate Investors Association, and I heard you speak. And those things go late, right? It's like, yeah, everybody who's an investor there, like, I guess doesn't have a real job, so they all stay up until like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. That's and right. She had to wake up at 4 a.m. to go to work at Jenny Craig. And I remember coming home at like 10 after hearing really a lot of the different things, but also the big part was hearing you speak. And I shook her awake, even though I knew she was going to have to wake up soon. I was like, babe, and she'll verify this story. I was like, babe, you have to listen to me. Like, I heard this guy speak tonight, and it is unbelievable, like what he's done and what I believe that I can do, because it was so, like, the way that you approach it is so accessible. Even though you're a massively accomplished person, you make people feel like they can do it too. And that's an incredible gift. And I told Kimberly, I was like, you know, I don't know what our future is going to look like, but it's going to be amazing. And so
what you just said is why you're teaching too, by the way. Like, if I got told, let's say somebody that was in my company bought houses for us, and I got told we had a deal, if you took my pulse rate, it would not have changed. If you call me up and say, hey man, you trained me and I just found my first deal, yeah, I'm on high. I'm excited, because that's why we do it, because this real estate game changed my entire life, changed my entire safety level of living, and protects my family and everything. So yeah, it's a serious business that let me in. So, you know, who was I? I had a high school diploma. You have college degrees. I had a high school diploma, 2 kids before I was 19, and got fired 5 times in a row. So the world was saying, yeah, you're a real good guy. So somewhere along the way, this real estate thing caught my eye. I wanted to start by asking you a question because when you're a Marine, and by the way, I really appreciate your service to our country. That's really meaningful to me. When you meet a fellow Marine, or you don't know that he's a fellow Marine, but you find out that he is, what do you immediately know of him?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question because it goes to the heart of what White Feather really is all about. And what I immediately know, and it's like nothing is absolute in this world, but we don't live our life in absolutes. We live our life based off of the percentages of,
Outcome.
what could happen, right? Right.
Yeah.
So I know to a large degree that person has a resilience. They have at least an inner desire to sacrifice for the greater good. I know that they know how to work within a team. I know that oftentimes they're extremely pragmatic, which, man, in business, and you know this, in business, yeah, you have to be able to dream, but you got to be able to do the deals. You have to be pragmatic. You have to make decisions. And, the Marine Corps is all about pragmatism. It's not about beauty and flash. It's about getting the job done,
right,
no matter what. And so that type of persistence and resilience and gritty pragmatism is something that, can yield success. So I know that about, and I know that they're loyal, right? And I know that if I call upon their integrity and I say, listen, and here's the deal, in White Feather, I say, one of the things that makes it such a special community is that we move fast, and we move fast. The speed of trust, the velocity of trust within the network is incredibly fast. And the reason is because two things. Number one, you can trust everybody because in general, with our shared background, they're going to do the right thing, but they also know that they will get absolutely destroyed if they screw anybody over. Within our community, you will get annihilated if you do not act with integrity. So there's that twin combination of, yeah, sure, you're going to do the right thing, mostly because it's the right thing to do, but you also have that little fear that you'll get annihilated if you don't.
That's, I guess, both important points. There was a book actually written about what you just said, and I'm sorry, it's just boy, that's the first time that's ever happened. It slipped my mind. What you said, as far as the tying the pieces together, as far as the trust
Velocity
factor.
of trust, yeah.
Well, yeah, just the price of trust or the benefit of having trust in place. It's irreplaceable, absolutely, and very necessary in business. When did you decide that the Marines were going to be for you? When did that occur?
I think that the idea of service in the Marine Corps was, when I was a little kid, and my dad inadvertently sort of turned me on to it. So my dad was drafted into the Army in Vietnam, and he asked to go in the Marine Corps instead. And, he'll tell you this, so this is not a big secret. My dad wasn't a great Marine. Right, he was busted down twice from corporal to lance corporal, got in fights all the time. He was the kind of guy that, like, I was an officer in the Marine Corps. He's the kind of lance corporal you really wouldn't want to have in your unit, right?
Okay.
And this is his words, right? And so he didn't have a fantastic experience in the Marine Corps, and so he wasn't somebody who just pounded the drum and said, "You need to serve," and da da da. But what was undeniable when he talked about the Marine Corps was that he was extremely proud to have served.
Okay.
Even though he didn't like his time in the Marine Corps, and he told me not to go in the Marine Corps. He literally said, "You do not go." He said, "Join the Air Force." He said, "The Air Force is going to be a better life for you. Join the Air Force." But you could see the pride eking out of him that he wore the Eagle Globe and Anchor. You could see it, and that to me spoke much more volumes. And so I always kind of wanted to serve. But then I think whenever I was in the Marine, when I was at the Naval Academy, so you get accepted to the Naval Academy and then you go through school. It's 4 years of college, and then you don't know what you're going to be at the end of it. You have to kind of apply for it and get selected to different services. But 9/11 happened my sophomore year. And when 9/11 happened, the amount of people who wanted to go into the Marine Corps and take the fight up to the ground tripled overnight. And so it became this really intense competition. But really, Bruce, that's what it came down to. Is when the planes flew into the towers, I said, I'm going to go Marine.
Wow. Now, how long did you serve, and when was your last year of service?
Well, technically, I'm still in.
Okay.
The Marine Corps has a really funny way of, they know exactly what carrots to dangle when. So I did 16 and a half years active duty. I transitioned into the reserve so that I could keep my family here in California because they wanted to move me. I wanted to keep my family here in California as well as do real estate full time. But I am technically in the reserves.
Okay. I've spent a little time on your Facebook page, and the one word that would not come to mind would be boring. So it seems like whatever you get into has a level of excitement. So skydiver, on the spur of the moment, you say, yeah, I think I'll go along to the 300-mile bike trek. All right. You're walking with your wife in shark-infested pool water, and then you decide to become you're going to own a plane because you can make a profit while you get your pilot license. So
essentially, yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting that, have you always had that bent, because a lot of times, and I do ask these questions of entrepreneurs, I love stories about, okay, like if you're a dad, you could see that working, like, oh, look at that. That's an unusual trait. Did you have some of that going on when you were a kid, either entrepreneurial or just I don't care what happens, I'm going to give it a shot?
Yeah, not the entrepreneurial part, because my family was not. It wasn't an environment that really fostered entrepreneurial spirit, because it was really more W-2 kind of, hardworking, but hardworking in that particular lane.
Yeah, mine too, by the way, exactly.
Yeah,
and that's one of the reasons I always ask the question, because I'm always just amazed at some of these beginnings of people had when they're like 6 or 8 years old doing something that's quite business-like, going, holy cow. Okay, so you and I are very similar in that we sort of had to get that one step on our own,
That's right. And it had to, and it was a significant break away from conventional wisdom. Like, then that's, so, I mean, and not without pain and not without fear, right? I mean, it's, people in our world, in our entrepreneurial world, it's like, okay, that's obvious. Why in the world wouldn't you do that? Because blah, blah, blah. But the rest of the world, most of the world, thinks that we're nuts.
Yeah,
you know that, right?
Yeah, and I can remember I'm 28 or 29, and I've worked in the buying business for a month, and I'm basically telling my family and my dad especially, hey, I'm going to quit my job, and he's like, what? So there was a lot of pressure to stay W-2 and, don't be entrepreneurial, because that's not the way to go. So I sort of broke out of the box myself.
Think about this,
Bruce, really quick.
Yeah.
I've heard Bruce's story with Marsha, his wife, while he was, beginning. You've got to have a partner that's willing to go along with that ride. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. Oh, that is such a fantastic point, Kimberly. If you Google Kimberly Rushing real estate, you'll see little like newspaper articles and stuff that they wrote about her. What you don't know is that she was doing that stuff when I was deployed to Afghanistan. So whenever we first started like buying houses, and we were buying them to hold, but they were old and dilapidated and needed to be renovated, I was in Afghanistan leading Bravo Company and then later Engineer Support Company in Camp Leatherneck. Kimberly was in Twentynine Palms. She would drive up to Twentynine Palms, and we would buy these houses, very small, modest houses, $65,000, maybe $15,000 renovation budget. And she would run the contractors, and then inevitably, whenever the contractors would not finish in time, she would stay in the houses, paint for 40 hours straight, stage everything, get it ready to go right before the renters came in to get their keys, right?
Yeah.
And so she would sleep in, like with little Charlie. We had Charlie, our little dog. She would paint all day long, and then sleep in the closet, and then get up after a few hours of sleep and continue. That's Kimberly, and I will tell you this. Number one, she trusts me implicitly, which is a gift. It's a blessing, right? Because that is not extremely common for a spouse to truly trust the other person to make decisions that may be scary. I know, because I've helped hundreds of investors like try to, work toward building financial freedom, and their spouse is either passively supportive at best or openly hostile, which is the most common.
That's, yeah. Well, it's funny.
So-
It's funny you say that. I was teaching a Bible class one time, and the suggestion was I divided the guys and the women, and I said, what would be your take if you came home and a new car was in the driveway? And so there was like there's sort of like a support level. So maybe there were 20 men and 20 women. There was one woman who was her husband was a friend of mine, and he was an entrepreneur, and she said that would be fine with me. What was my wife's comment? He buys houses every week. I've never known.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now I'm just curious because you just said something that's really important. Does she participate in the education process? Because that would be a valuable couple team, if you would, going, wow, that's who I need to become.
Let's call her out on that, because I'd like her to listen to this podcast. She has all of the capability in the world, and there's a lot of people that want to hear from her. But because, and you brought me on the show, so I'm just going to be real and honest. Whenever we started having kids, we said, okay, you focus. I said, okay, you focus on the children. Yep. I'll focus on the business. And so it's been about 4 years since she's really actively engaged in the business. Now the kids are a little older, and she can actively. We had this conversation this morning of where does she fit in now? How does she bring her talents to bear? And I agree with you, Bruce. A lot of people want to see that dynamic because it inspires other people. And I tell people all the time, if your spouse is on board, and more than on board, if they're actively engaged with you, you're a powerhouse. There's nothing that can stop you if the two of you are shoulder to shoulder marching in the same direction. So yeah, I agree. I think, Kimberly, if you're hearing this, Bruce just called you out.
Well, I think that's missing from a lot of people. I mean, I honestly do. And I know I had that support, and that was just important because there were things that would go wrong, of course,
Yeah.
And I never got beat up for that. It was always, hey, it's part of the process, let's walk through it.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And one of the messes we had, I actually came home and said, we had built a custom home, and I was facing like $20,000 a month payments on homes that we had built that other investors couldn't make the payment on. And I said, we may have to sell our custom home. And she said, whatever you need to do. Well, we never needed to do that because this business can allow you to make that kind of money if you work your butt off and decide you don't want to sell your home. But I still had the support. And that's kind of the point, is to have that kind of support. Is unusual, but boy, is it beneficial.
It absolutely is, without question. And here's something that you might find interesting. People, the mindset that you get over time, obviously it grows, and it's a critical part. Like you can create an investment strategy that'll make you lots of money, but unless you grow yourself and your mindset to that different level of income or wealth, you're never going to be able to sustain it. You're going to do self-destructive behaviors. It's called the upper limit problem, right? So it's common. So one of the great benefits of me having overnight success, 15 years in the making, has been that it's been incremental. It hasn't been this flash in the pan kind of like, wow, look at all this. It's been monthly and yearly and over a long period of time. So I've had the ability to grow incrementally. And I tell Kimberly all the time that the things that we have, the house that we have and the cars that we have and everything like that, it's all dead. It's just things. And so if the thing that matters the most is, the two of us and our family and the journey that we're on together, because, Bruce, this, things can get taken away. Like you can lose things. I could have everything go wrong. I could get sued. I could, get sick, whatever. There's lots of things that can happen that can take away your things. Right. And I told Kimberly, I said, we're doing well right now. And we are blessed to have all of this stuff and this opportunity that we've worked really hard for. And I'm not diminishing the work, but understand something very, very clearly. I grew up on food stamps and it wasn't that bad. Right. So what I'm saying is that
I
you can survive.
was on food stamps and it wasn't that good.
Yeah, no, it's not that good. I'm not saying that it's good or that it's fun. What I'm saying is you can survive.
Yes.
You can survive on beans and rice 5 days a week. I've done it. Right. So yeah, we may have all of this stuff now, but if something happens and for whatever reason we lose it, we're not going to lose our minds at the same time, because our identity is not tied up in this. I told Kimberly the first two things that'll go if we hit really hard times are the Tesla and my pride. And I will sit and I will work and I will protect my family and we will build it back. But what we won't do is deny or point fingers or destroy each other because we lost a nice car.
Yeah. Well, you know what? There's like a switch that clicks into an entrepreneur when it hits the fan.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you know who you have. That's when you show up, and it's when you accelerate and defeat something that's completely ridiculous, and you do it because you knew you would. You knew you had to.
Okay, that's going to do it for part one of our interview with Buddy Rushing. Please stay tuned next week for the Norris Group Real Estate Radio Show and Podcast for part two.
For more information on hard money loans and upcoming events with the Norris Group, check out thenorrisgroup.com. For information on passive investing with trust deeds, visit tngtrustdeeds.com.
The Norris Group originates and services loans in California and Florida under California DRE License 012-19911, Florida Mortgage Lender License 1577, and NMLS License 1623669. For more information on hard money lending, go to thenorrisgroup.com and click the Hard Money tab.